Every single day you make hundreds, maybe thousands of little choices. You check your phone, you head to work, you decide what to eat. But what if I told you that a lot of those choices aren't really as free as you think? What if there's a kind of hidden code, a set of invisible rules running in the background of your mind, shaping almost everything you do? Well, today we're going to dive deep into that hidden code. It's called operant conditioning.
I mean, really think about it for a second. Why is it so ridiculously easy to just pick up your phone and start scrolling, but almost impossible to stop? Or, how does a kid learn to say please, but also figure out that throwing a huge tantrum in the grocery store sometimes gets them what they want? The answer to all of these questions, believe it or not, comes down to the exact same powerful psychological principle, and we're going to crack it wide open.
So, where do we start? Well, it all begins with a super simple but absolutely game-changing idea. Our actions have consequences. And it's those consequences, the good and the bad, that pretty much decide whether we're going to do that thing again. Let's go back to the very beginning to see where this all started.
Okay, so our story starts with this guy, Edward Thorndike. We're talking way back, around the turn of the 20th century. He was doing all these experiments, studying how animals learn, and he started to notice this pattern, a really simple rule that seemed to be behind all behavior, whether it was a cat trying to get out of a box or, well, us going about our day.
He gave it a name, the law of effect. And honestly, it's as intuitive as it sounds. If you do something and something good happens, you're probably going to do it again. If you do something and something bad happens, yeah, you're going to think twice next time. It's that simple. This single idea is the absolute bedrock of everything we're about to talk about. The key takeaway here is just this. Consequences shape our future actions. Period.
So Thorndike laid down that first crucial piece of the puzzle. But then, another psychologist came along who took this simple law and basically built an entire scientific system around it, turning a basic observation into a powerful way to understand behavior.
And that psychologist was the famous B.F. Skinner. Now, Skinner was what you'd call a radical behaviorist. He believed that if you wanted to understand why people or animals do what they do, you don't need to get caught up in messy, internal stuff like thoughts and feelings. No, you just need to look at two things, the observable action and what happened in the environment right after. And he was determined to prove it scientifically.
And to do that, he invented this, the operant conditioning chamber, which everyone now calls the Skinner box. I know, it might look a little intense, but it was really just a super controlled environment. It let him tweak the consequences with incredible precision, like delivering a little food pellet or a brief, mild shock, and then measure exactly how that changed an animal's behavior, like whether it pressed a lever more or less often.
So from all these experiments, Skinner basically came up with a practical toolkit for shaping behavior. And it all boils down to two big ideas. Reinforcement, which is anything that strengthens a behavior, and punishment, which, you guessed it, weakens a behavior.
Okay, this right here is the most important distinction you need to get. It's everything. Reinforcement makes a behavior more likely to happen again. Think of it like the gas pedal. Punishment makes a behavior less likely to happen again. That's the brakes. Simple enough, right? Well, it gets just a little more detailed than that.
Right, so here's where it gets really interesting because reinforcement isn't just one thing. There are two types. Positive reinforcement is what we usually think of. You add something good. You praise a child for doing their homework, you're adding praise to make the homework doing happen more. Now, negative reinforcement is the one that trips people up. Negative doesn't mean bad, it just means you take something away. Think about it. You take an aspirin to remove a headache. Because removing that awful headache feels good, you're more likely to take an aspirin next time. So see, both types get the same result. They increase a behavior.
And punishment works the exact same way, just in the opposite direction. Positive punishment means you add something unpleasant. Giving a child a timeout for misbehaving adds an undesirable consequence to decrease the bad behavior. And then there's negative punishment, where you remove something desirable. Taking away a teenager's phone for breaking curfew is the classic example, right? You're taking away something they love to make them less likely to break curfew again.
Okay, so we've got the four main tools in our toolkit. But here's the thing. Just as important as what the consequence is when it happens. The timing, the frequency, it all has a massive impact on how well it works. This is where we get into the real science and the art of shaping behavior.
So let's go back to Skinner's pigeon. How in the world did he get a pigeon to do something as specific as pressing a button for food? I mean, did he just sit there and wait for the pigeon to figure it out on its own? No way, that would take forever. Instead, he used this incredibly clever technique called shaping, and it's all about rewarding baby steps. This breaks it down perfectly.
First, you give the pigeon a treat, just for turning in the direction of the button. Then, once it's doing that, you stop rewarding that and only reward it for actually walking towards the button. Then, you reward it for getting closer. Then for looking at it. And finally, only for the actual tap. You see? You build a complex behavior by reinforcing these tiny, successive steps. It's how animal trainers teach seals to balance balls. And honestly, it's how we learn most of our own complex skills too.
But it gets even deeper. Skinner also figured out that the pattern of the reward is incredibly powerful. These patterns are called schedules of reinforcement, and they're basically the rules that decide when a reward gets delivered. And let me tell you, this is where things get really fascinating, especially when you start looking at your own life.
So here are the 4 big ones. A fixed ratio schedule is predictable. You get paid a commission after every 5 sales. A fixed interval is also predictable, but based on time. You get a paycheck every 2 weeks. But things get wild when the rewards are unpredictable. A variable interval schedule is like a pop quiz. You don't know when it's coming, so you have to keep studying. But the most powerful, the most addictive of them all is variable ratio. This is the slot machine. It's the lottery ticket. It's refreshing your social media feed. You have no idea which pull of the lever is going to give you the jackpot, so you just keep pulling. That unpredictability is the secret sauce that makes some behaviors so hard to quit.
All right, let's zoom out of the lab. Because this stuff isn't just for pigeons and rats in boxes. This invisible code of rewards, punishments, and schedules is running your life every single day, often without you even noticing.
I mean, just look at this list. It's everywhere. It's in how we raise our kids, how we train our pets, how teachers manage classrooms. It's baked into workplace bonuses that are designed to make us more productive. It even explains weird things like superstitions. You know, if a baseball player just happens to wear a certain pair of socks and then hits a grand slam, that one random reinforcement might be enough to make him think those are his lucky socks forever. And most importantly, it's the engine driving how all of your own habits get formed.
But, this system isn't always used for good. There's a darker side to it. When an animal or a person is repeatedly exposed to negative situations that they have no control over, they can develop something called learned helplessness. They basically learn that nothing they do matters, so they just give up. They stop trying to escape the bad situation, even when an escape route finally opens up. It's a really powerful and kind of sobering reminder of just how much our environment can shape our will to act. So I'll leave you with this question. Now that you can see the code, how much of your day is really guided by it? That little buzz of satisfaction when you get a notification on your phone, that's reinforcement. The praise from your boss that makes you work a little bit later, reinforcement. That feeling of anxiety that pushes you to check your email one more time, that's negative reinforcement. So how much of what you do is just a response to all this invisible programming? The amazing thing is, seeing the code is the first step. Once you understand the rules, you can start to rewrite them. You can start to build your own rewards to create better habits. And you can finally recognize the patterns that have been holding you back. The code is always running, but now you can start to debug it.